Poker's legendary champions, next-generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your hosts, Brad Wilson and Jon Chai.
Welcome, my friend, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, these are your hosts of Tactical Tuesday, Coach Brad Wilson and Jon Chai. Looks like we have the easy hand replayer open, which means only one thing, that live poker Jon is back. What's up, sir?
How's it going, Brad? Yep, live poker Jon is indeed Brack. It's
Brack? Who's
back.
Brack?
Back. Brad plus back. Actually, it's not only live poker today. There's an extra wrinkle on top of these live hands, and that's that both of these hands that we're going to go over today were played in the context of the stand-up game. Have you ever played that, Brad? Have you ever?
I haven't ever partook in the stand-up game in live poker. I don't think it was a thing 10 years ago, but seems to be a thing these days.
Is that the last time you played live poker?
In earnest, probably. Not 10 years ago, but probably 7 or 8 years that I actually put in a decent amount of volume. It's been quite a while.
Okay. Well, it's a really simple game, and I'll explain it for you and the listeners who haven't played.
Before you go ahead, though, I want to pause for a moment because I do want to mention that just this week, speaking of live poker, I have released a brand new course, Live Cash Preflop Bootcamp, that's essentially based on mass data analysis and theory, breaks down live poker strategy versus two profiles, both regs and the fish. It's taken me, 6 to 8 months to develop, much longer than I originally anticipated. And through the course of making Live Cash Preflop Bootcamp, I had multiple kind of major decisions to make. Sometimes I thought wow, this is just, it's too good of information to sell it publicly. This was a genuine thought of I want to withhold this for the Wolves specifically. And then over time, I kind of reached the conclusion that I've already told a bunch of people in the village that I'm making it. And so making it private instead of public feels not great. And then B, the live poker market is so big that it felt like the downside just wasn't as big as it would be if, it was a smaller pool, and on the online streets, there's just, tons of live tables all around the country. Every moment you can't play more than one at a time. So there's, the market is really, really, really big in live poker, but I don't really know of anything else like it that's on the market. And it just got finished at the end of this month, I believe. I haven't set an exact day, but just like the original pre-flop bootcamp, I'm going to be going through the first iteration myself with the whole group that buy in the next few weeks. And so it's $499, the price of a buy-in at $2.5. And I just, I guess one way that I can kind of see or understand or feel the value of something that I make is when I'm actively learning while I'm making it. And I'm oh my God, I can't believe that this is, I thought about this spot very, very differently than what the data is informing me right now. And that's how I know that major upgrades are being made. And a lot of the things are not intuitive, and it's just, it's been a big project, and I'm excited to get it out there, and it's on sale now at chasingpokergreatness.com.
Yeah, it's a huge course. It also works pretty well for online 9max, right?
Sure. I mean, that's where a lot of the data used to build it was taken from, right? Because it's really hard to do data analysis in live poker hands. You just don't get enough to really map out much. And so, my thought was that what's a good analog for live poker? A good analog is, 9max and full ring online. And from what I've seen from anecdotal feedback of people that have been, playtesting the strats over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, pretty much in line. So yeah, pretty pretty proud, pretty excited, and it's just an insanely valuable thing that, just ready to roll it out. If you're interested, I would suggest investing into a massive strategic upgrade when you're playing live poker.
Is Queen Jack offsuit in the open under the gun opening range in live pre-flop boot camp? Because
it is not. It is not.
That looks like it's what's about to happen here.
I don't think that it makes it in.
I probably need to invest in.
Yeah, we're 8-handed, but you do have some other data points and some other factors that you're considering, as is what happens when you play live poker, right? There's most of the time some other considerations, stack depth, straddles, button straddles, UTG, like just all kinds of, if you're playing a home game, there's like the rock, right? Which is like a straddle every hand type scenario that's a little bit unique. And one of the reasons why I think live poker is just, it's fun. It's different. There's always new challenging problems that are going to pop up that you've probably never experienced before, just because there are just so many different available possibilities.
Yeah, there's a wider range of variables in live for sure, and stand up is one of them. Just one of some of the myriad of things that never happen online that completely change strategy when you're playing poker. It happens pretty regularly when you're playing live.
What's kind of messed up about the stand-up game is like it could have like this could be a thing online, right? Like it could totally be a game format. In the same way that like back in the day, Ultimate Bet had Deuce to 7 as a format, right? Where like you just make a table and it's a Deuce to 7 game table, and like at 2 big blinds like go up above your head, and if you win a pot with 7 deuce, then you get the 2 big blinds from everybody's head. That's worth I guess 12 total big blinds. And I mean, those games were incredibly fun. They were just like, it was just really, 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 really fun. It introduced just a different dynamic to the table. And I don't really understand why the online poker platforms that, serve the US market have they don't do any of these things, which is just.
ACR does bomb pots.
Yeah. I mean, bomb pots, right? Like this, like it's just, anyway, don't get me started. Anyway, like they could do the stand-up game online, and basically like if you left a table before the game ended, you would just lose essentially.
Sure.
So anyway, let's describe the stand-up game for the listener, maybe somebody that's never played it before.
Sure.
And even for myself, so I can kind of get all the variables, see what's going on.
Stand-up game, like you might have guessed from the name, is a game where all 8 players at the table stand up, usually at the start of a new dealer change or something like that. And the only way you get to sit down is if you win a hand. You can bluff it, you can win at showdown. It doesn't matter how you win, but as long as you win a hand, you get to sit down. The last person left standing owes the other 7 players at the table a bounty. In this case, it was a $100 bounty, so the last person standing would have lost $700 and had to pay everyone 1 black chip.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can probably, just from hearing the parameters of the game, you can probably begin imagining just how much action it begins inducing. I came to this table while they were in the middle of a stand-up game, so I had to wait for them to finish their game before being able to join. And the last hand of their stand-up game was the under-the-gun player open ripping $2,500, which is 250 big blinds. Everybody folded, and then he just says like, "Whew," and table's 9-3 off, and just says like, "I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be the last one standing." So, just a peek into the madness that can ensue when there are only 2 people left standing.
Yeah, it makes sense. I would imagine that a lot of things are going to change, probably even from the jump. A lot more 3-betting, a lot more late position battles, probably a bigger opening size in late position. Just doing whatever they can to, essentially win the pot.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I feel like I learned, definitely picked up in the last, 8 to 10 rounds of stand-up or whatever that I played this week, was that especially when everyone is standing up early in the round, one of the things that seems really, really powerful is just a really, really massive pre-flop 3-bet when everyone's still up. It's just like people don't have incentive to bluff catch or like play sheriff when they don't have to yet, and it's still just you can still just have a monster and be, three betting huge to balance when you are going to three bet just to try to steal the pot and take your seat. So yeah, there's tons of strategic implications just right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, another one is like just sitting down earlier seems like a massive edge because the earlier you sit down, the more that you can kind of passively
Yep.
get in the mix with these like crazy 9 tray off jam type
Yep.
scenarios. Like
Yep.
you can just pick people off basically, and like some more obvious scenarios. So like, yeah, it seems like there's a big advantage to sitting down more quickly, even though you don't have to, obviously you don't pay the bounty if you're like heads up, but getting down earlier just seems like a big edge, like monetarily.
Being seated and keeping people standing, I think, is a huge part of stand-up game. And that was something that was one of the things that I just never realized until I actually sat down and was like in there, and I was like, oh my God, like it's great to be sitting down. They can just, they can do tons of things to like force us to stand because they know exactly, just how desperate we are to win pots and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a weird bubble scenario where you know, the people who are sitting down that are in like a good position, they don't want the bubble to bust, right? Like they're trying to keep the bubble going as long as possible, and the people that are standing up just want it to end as quickly as possible. If they're like 2 or 3 left. So yeah, definitely cool little invention. So let's dive in, and I'll participate in the first stand-up game that I've ever participated in here today on Tactical Tuesday.
So this is the very first hand of my first stand-up game ever. Again, I'd been observing a little bit and seen the guy, open jam the 9-3 off when he was heads up, standing up. So got a little bit of a taste.
Everybody's standing at this point?
Everyone is standing, brand new, fresh game. I look down at Queen Jack offsuit, first tax, and I already have no idea what to do.
Well, may as well get in the mix, right? I doubt you're going to fold, so I guess we're just going to start here.
I think you should probably be doing something pre-flop other than normal open sizes and whatever. It just does not feel like... I mean, pre-flop just looks so bizarre. Like someone opens to 30, right, in a 5-10 game, which this is, where we're all about $2,000 effective. And then the 3-bet will be to like 300.
Sure. It makes sense.
Yeah. So just any quick thoughts on opening strategy? Like, I'm sure it's going to be very, very different based on how many people are standing, but let's just take this first scenario of when everybody is standing.
I mean, the first thing that I would like really be sweating and paying attention to would be any additional data points that I could use to help me. So just blinds, who are in the blinds? Are they defending a ton? Are they fighters? Have they peeked at their cards yet? Is there any sort of information that I can get from them peeking at their cards? Like, just really trying to figure out like as much as I possibly can. In the absence of like no information, you have like this weird sort of dynamic where, the 3-bet's going to be huge, you said, or people tend to 3-bet much bigger in the stand-up game. Does that mean that your open size should be much bigger to, kind of counteract that? Or should you just open regular and
benefit from these massive oversized 3-bets?
Massive oversized 3-bets that are coming either way. I don't really know the answer to that.
Limp?
Yeah, I guess you could, right? Like there's a lot of different ways that it could go. So I don't know. But looks like you're going to play this hand. So let's just dive into the hand, and then I'll give my thoughts as sort of the action comes to us.
I kind of just froze up, didn't know what to do, so I just opened. I was like, I'm pretty sure I should play this hand, but I don't know exactly how to get in there. So I just started with normal open. Folds around to the blinds. Who are both, I mean, button for, I don't know, your data points, like the button and blinds, in my opinion, were both fighters, I guess. The big blind is the kind of the main villain in this hand. He's, seems like a very competent reg. He was actually the guy who was, seemed like the person who was trying to get everyone to play stand-up. So he's seemed very comfortable playing stand-up. Saw him do like lots of things in the handful of rounds that he played that, sort of confirmed that and made me made me realize that he's probably much better at stand up than I am.
One like interesting thing about opening bigger pre, I can't imagine the big blind is folding any 2 here.
Yeah, it's really hard for the big blind to fold, or even the small blind to fold when you make it any normal raise size.
Like they just have a lot of incentive to peel like any 2.
Yep.
Facing a 3x open. So that would be the first argument for, opening larger than normal here, is that like as soon as I saw the action and I was like, oh, the small blind flats and the big blind, like they should call 7 deuce off. Like they just have to call like any 2 basically, and give themselves a chance to win early. Now this is a good board. So John opened with queen jack off, everybody folded, small blind, big blind called, and ace king deuce rainbow is the flop. And I could see just a lot of different ways that you could go about starting your c betting strategy here.
What would you do?
I mean, you could. I would probably overbet. I mean, and probably just go for like 3 streets. Like just ace king deuce rainbow is just such a good board for the pre-flop opener here versus the blinds that I would just go ham essentially.
That was my plan. I didn't really overbet. I didn't go as far as overbetting the flop. I ended up potting the flop, but was just planning on the same thing you said and just kind of just going ham for 3 streets.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at this board and my first thought was, oh my god, I'm gonna bluff off my stack in my first hand of stand up because I opened under the gun and the board was ace king deuce and I'm playing against the blinds.
I mean, rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is just a good situation under normal circumstances, and in this circumstance, it just feels way better.
Yep. So I potted
the big blind
calls. Yep.
The big blind does call, which is concerning.
Oh my god, this is the most beautiful turn I've ever seen in my life.
The turn is a 10 of hearts, which gives John the nuts.
Oh, this guy's gonna call down light because it's stand up. Like just I couldn't believe it.
You can't believe that you have a hand on ace king 10. I think you're supposed to have a hand here in general. Like,
am I? In a normal game, yeah.
In a normal game, like I'm not sure the eight-handed aspect of like I don't know. I honestly, I'm not exactly sure, but you do have a good hand, so I guess you potted the flop, so now it's kind of just big bet the turn, right?
Yeah. That's what I go and do. I expect to get called down like I don't know, like lighter than normal for sure. Like I think there's extra, there's extra EV and bluffing for me because I get to, there's this overlay in the pot from getting to sit down and, not having to pay 100 and, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, again, I expected definitely to get called down by like every 2 pair, which is pretty normal anyways, but like probably every ace X as well. I don't know what you think about that.
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
Like I don't know.
That's sort of what I was thinking and hoping. So anyways, he checks. I potted again. Happy pot this time.
Sad pot on the flop. Happy pot when you turn the nuts.
Ooh, board pairs on the river. Ace, king, deuce, 10, king.
Mm-hmm.
Big blind checks.
As they should.
Yeah.
I
was planning on ripping like Rick Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
This one feels like now I could size down.
It's I don't think it's like an ultra threatening card as far as like you losing the pot. I guess they do have some like king 10 or king deuce. I do think that like you potting like on the flop and the turn, like they do need to have something. Like I don't think they're just like messing around here with like just a deuce or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like they need to have something to call down. So I mean, jamming still seems reasonable for the scenario. Like
Okay.
I would much rather I would be way more concerned on like a heart river than the king specifically.
Yeah.
Like an ace is obviously not a great river. The king is like less threatening, and a heart, because the ace and the king are not hearts, so like they probably do have like pair plus flush draws a ton. So yeah, like I mean, I think I would just stick to the plan, your plan, and just jam the river.
Targeting like king X of hearts or whatever king X they have, king jack, king queen, maybe.
Or even like trying to get like ace X the hero, with just thinking that like we could just be having
going
some
crazy
like
because this board is good for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Have some like busted hearts ourselves, or like maybe queens or jacks that were. It's really hard for us to have queens and jacks potting the flop. But yeah.
I sized down. Was a little too worried, I guess, about like not getting heroed by enough ace X and doing a lot of value cutting myself versus like king deuce and king 10.
It's interesting. Like, why does the king make it harder to get called by ace X rationally?
I don't think it necessarily makes it harder to get called by king X than it does on brick rivers, but now they're fewer. Or sorry, ace X on brick rivers, but they're now just like fewer 2-pair combos that I can target on the river. Whereas like on brick rivers, I can hope that he just calls with ace deuce and ace 10 and whatever hit the river. Now that seems
unlikely
given that those 2 pairs are counterfeited.
Yeah. I think probably a decent portion of the range is going to be like king queen and king jack too.
Yeah. Now that we look at it, there does seem to be like a pretty reasonable king X region that I can target here. Really, the king X of hearts is just he's gonna have every single one. So. So. Oh no.
What the hell? You checked?
Oh no, I did not check. I guess the replayer, small glitch in the replayer. So
yeah, the replayer says that you checked. I was like, okay, so I don't understand this strat.
I bet 3/4 on the river. I bet like 600-ish on the river. The big blind tanks for not very long, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and I'm obviously just praying that he calls when he goes into the tank.
Yeah.
He tanks and then he calls, and I flip over my hand and like get ready to like I actually flipped over my hand and took my seat, right?
Yeah.
Like, if he tank on, and he says no, not so fast. Like stand up.
It's right? Not over.
Like, oh my god, I value cut myself. He was thinking about raising with king deuce or king 10, and he just decided not to. And then he tables queen jack, so we chop.
Well, you almost did it in your first attempt.
Yeah. It was devastating. I was like, wow, I'm gonna get my seat and win a pretty big pot and just like get to do whatever I want sitting down for the rest of stand-up game, and then all of that was taken away from me.
Well, after that exciting and dramatic conclusion to hand number 1, where John chops the pot in the first hand he ever played in the stand-up game, we're gonna take a short break here and move to hand number 2, where hopefully, does somebody win the second hand? Is there a winner here?
Can't spoil it.
Can't spoil it. Let's hope there's a winner, because there wouldn't be much to spoil if it was 2 chop pots in a row. They do.
Are you a lone wolf searching for the ultimate pack? The CPG Wolf program is a close-knit brotherhood hell-bent on one thing only: chasing poker greatness. Powered by bleeding-edge wolf strats and led by Coach Brad and his lieutenants, CPG Wolves are systematically prepared for almost any spot they'll encounter on the green felt. If you want to plug into an elite team and have a step-by-step game plan to realize your full poker potential, you can apply at cpgwolves.com. Space is limited, and the pack is only as strong as its weakest member. So only the hungriest, grittiest, and most driven will be accepted into the program. Applications are open at cpgwolves.com.
All right. Welcome back to today's stand-up episode of Tactical Tuesday. And, if tying is like kissing your sister, then if hand number 2 is a tie, John, then we're entering like full on makeout episode with your sister here. So please, we have to avoid this at all costs.
You've never done that before?
Unless that's kind of your thing, I guess. There may be a certain subset of the audience that enjoys that kind. Yeah, that's rooting for that. If that's you, then okay, good for you, John. I guess you'll serve.
Hey, if that's you, definitely stay tuned to the end of this hand because
you're serving a very underserved demographic that listens to Tactical Tuesday, and I can only imagine what your parents are thinking right now as we do this. So hand number 2, full ring again, 8-handed.
Yeah.
You got the ace-9 off. Looks like you're expanding your under the gun.
Got ace-9 off. I'm under the gun again. All right. Well, let me give you a little bit of context. I'm in a very stressful situation here, where it's me and just a small blind left standing, which is why I feel compelled to VPip this hand in some way. This is a little deeper in the stand-up game, or not even deeper in the same game. But just it was like the second or third round of stand-up.
I feel as if, I mean, just like the setup of the stand-up game, it feels like you don't want to have a lot of depth.
Oh, not having depth is worth a lot, I think, in stand-up.
Like, you don't want to be deep because, like, you want to maintain the ability to just, like, jam pre.
Yeah. And the overlay is the overlay, regardless of how much you're risking with your jam.
Yeah. Depth seems to be, like, a huge advantage. Like, the people who are not as deep as the other people just seem to be at, like, a big advantage in the stand-up game, I would think.
Yeah.
With that said, like, here, you're under the gun. I would be a little bit concerned because the small blind can... I mean,
everybody knows, which is just like the scariest thing. It's like I'm looking around at these, 6 other seated people, and they're just like hungrily like, all right, man, you got to VPip this hand. What are you gonna do?
Can you straddle?
Don't know. Nobody was straddling in the thing, but I wish I did. I wish I
don't understand why you wouldn't straddle.
Yeah,
because then you at least get like.
Yeah, last
to see
action
what the small blind does.
Yeah,
it's like a really big deal in this scenario.
Nobody had been straddling. I did not put it on. Didn't even think to.
Okay. All right.
That's a good adjustment. I should straddle every time I'm under the gun and stand up. I think just.
Yeah, I would think that's good.
Yeah.
Well, you don't straddle, so now here we are, and honestly, I don't really know what to do. I know folding is off the table.
Yeah, the last guy who was here open ripped more
with 9-3
for 9-3 off. With 9-3 off. So
yeah, so I mean, I guess like the first thing is to think about like the profitability of like just open ripping, like and how often everybody folds. Ugh. And then
it's weird because like it's worth an extra $100 to open rip and get it through. But if you don't get it through, there's like this. Well, I mean, presumably you lose 1,500 a lot of the time, and then you're still at risk to lose 700 more because you're still live for the stand-up game.
Sure. I mean, in that case, I'm not really sure what I would do. I don't really know.
Just gut feeling. Everyone's looking at you. You got to make a decision.
Gut feeling is to just open big. But alternatively, I could imagine like limping as well. But I think I would just open to like 150 or 200 or something.
And just hope that. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm hoping for. That's a good point.
Definitely call it the small blind jams.
You have to call it. Yeah. Like if you limped and everybody folded small blind,
if you make it 200.
No, I'm saying if you limped,
I see.
You would still call all in if they jammed.
Yes,
so it doesn't really like if the small blind jams, like you've got no choice. The other players, it's really interesting, right? Because like they all have incentive to attack a big open.
Dude, this game is so much fun. I'm all I could do is think about stand-up game after.
Yeah, I think I would limp now that I think about it and do essentially the same thing as a straddle, except I don't have my option.
Right, kind of like a blind
with
call.
A straddle. Yeah. Like I think that's probably. I don't know. I have no idea if that's the best way to go, but I think that's the strat that I think I land on.
Okay, yeah, that's what I landed on too. Was limp.
You did it. Oh man.
I was like, whoa, over limp from a guy that's sitting? Interesting. Okay. Whoa, another guy that's sitting over limp. Okay. Now the real sweat. The small blind.
Yeah, this is a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Okay, so John limped, cutoff limp, button limp, and the small blind makes it 13 bigs, which is a weird.
It's so weird.
I'm so confused.
Should I be terrified? Like, does he actually have a good hand? Wouldn't he just jam?
I don't think that they should have any size other than.
Like, okay, so the thing that really scares me is he knows that this is never getting through. At least it's never getting through me, at least.
Sure.
Either getting jammed or called. And he made it like a really reasonable price, and so I'm just like terrified. I'm like, wow, why would he give me a reasonable price?
I have a question. So, like, if you folded, would the cutoff and the button call generally, or fold because they get their bounty?
I think the sitting players would do whatever they could to keep as many players standing for as long as possible.
So you think that, you know,
I don't think they would fold just to collect the bounty. They would consider like, okay, like what's the EV of keeping these guys up for potentially keeping these guys up for future hands.
yeah.
That seemed to be a big concern for everybody.
How many hands does it take for like one person to sit down? Like, I mean, like how long does like the stand-up game generally last? I mean, I guess you probably don't have these answers, but like,
It
I'm
never
curious.
lasted longer than I would say 20 minutes, right? Like we never got close to the next dealer change and had someone standing.
Really?
And sometimes we were playing like, I don't know if this makes a difference, but sometimes we're playing 6 or 7-handed.
Okay. So, I mean, essentially that's like 20 hands, right?
20 hands in half an hour? That seems like a lot.
I don't know. Well, it's 6-handed it would be, but I
Okay,
guess
yeah.
15 hands? Like,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'm guessing.
which means somebody's going down like every other hand?
Well, the person that's sitting could win one of those hands.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like the game, typically like when there's two people standing,
Yeah.
it's probably going to last, 2 to 3 extra hands. So like essentially what is one hand worth to the person who's sitting
I see.
in keeping the game going?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that hand has to be worth more than $100
Yeah,
in
for
order
sure.
to not
For sure.
defend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
So-
you're also still live for the 100 later on anyway, so it's not like you're foregoing that 100.
Well, you always get
Yeah,
the
you
100.
always. Yeah, you right. You always have that 100. Yeah. So you
Yeah,
should
so
just
you-
keep the game going. Like.
Yeah, you always get the 100 no matter what. I don't know. The degen in me just says just rip it in and like whatever. I don't know what's going on.
I was so scared. I was like, he wouldn't do this with a weak hand, like a hand that he's gonna fold, would he? Like that seems insane.
It just seems like a weird situation to even do with like a really strong hand because like
Yeah, why wouldn't you just balance?
wouldn't you go bigger?
Yeah.
Like wouldn't you just go like 300? Why would you go 130? I don't understand. Like so I honestly am not sure. I think I would just jam and hope for the best. I don't know what else I can do. Like limp call with ace-9 off and take it 4 ways. Like that seems not good.
I was so scared. I was like, I can't fold, but I'm just terrified that I'm ripping into like ace king plus or something. Like how you know one of the things you say is like, dude, when people do weird stuff or like take the weird line, it's much easier to find it when you have,
Is this a
when you have
weird thing?
strong-
I don't know.
It feels like that's what it is because the normal thing seems to be to just jam. So like when they pick the non-jam, it's like when someone picks a 5-bet size instead of jamming pre-flop, right? In a normal
Yeah.
game, you're like, oh my god, he has aces. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know, but I don't know what else to do other than raise. Like I think the small blind raising is happening at like a frequency beyond 60% plus, and like if that is the case, then like I would just take. I guess another interesting part of this is like, do they have to call all in if you jam because they lose 700 by folding?
yeah.
But if they call and lose, then
Yeah.
they also lose their stack and
And-
could also lose an additional 700.
Yeah.
Ugh. I'm gonna need like days to think about
Oh,
this.
man.
I don't think I can come to a coherent thought here live. Spoiler alert, by the way, I haven't had a chance to look at these hands to think about them at all before we went on air. Yeah, I think I just jam. Like I don't really know what else to do.
I think
other
I
than
think
jam.
I butchered this hand pre-flop and likely later down the road too, because there are later down the road decisions because I don't.
Oh,
jam
there are.
and I
It
don't
doesn't just
fold.
end here. Okay, so you called, and the cutoff and the button both fold.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. I thought something was gonna happen for sure. Like not, I mean, call would be like the minimum, but I was like, could one of these guys even just be like trapping, knowing that the small blind is gonna raise like a ton, and then just like back jam here, like, and just pick up an extra $300? Like that would be pretty sweet for one of them to do.
Yeah, I think they should have like pure opens after you limp. You have to limp. I think this is like the first part. Like you've got a VPIP somehow.
Yeah.
So like your hands are tied. You have to do this.
Yeah,
So
I
like
think I have to. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
your VPIP shouldn't look strange.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like forced
Right.
based on the scenario, which
Yeah.
means like you're almost certainly not trapping because it's like really hard to
Right.
be forced to do
I have
something and get
100%
an
of my
actual good
range.
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I would imagine that they should probably be ISOing with their better hands and not over limping, because that's going to create a weird thing with the small blind too.
I guess what I was thinking was like they could take some of their like middling hands, like a hand like ace 10 off or something like that, or ace jack off, right?
Mhm.
Flat behind, count on the small blind to ISO, like we said, like that's just gonna happen, 60+% of the time. And then if I don't jam from under the gun, they just have like a really, really clear jam with
Yeah.
maybe their entire,
I'm just under both. Like I think I'm just like using both like givens here, that you've got a limp and the small blind has to ISO at a high frequency. Ace 9 off is like better than most hands.
Yeah.
So if they have kings, whatever, like you still have 30% equity or whatever. It's not like you're just like drawing dead.
Yeah.
And if the small blind is so blessed to have kings here, then I mean, they deserve this stack, right?
For
like
sure.
how could you be so fortunate?
Yeah.
But anyway, your head's up, and this is a real battle now because
thank God.
this is the battle. The two last remaining
Yeah.
tributes here in Hunger Games. You flop top pair, top kicker, and I mean, it's good life.
Yeah. Oh, thank God. That's all I could think was like, I didn't know what I was going to do if I just totally whiffed this flop. And
Yeah. We do have some interesting decisions down the line, though, because I think in this case, equity protection becomes actually a thing.
dude, it's worth so much.
Yeah, they
And
check.
He checks.
And checking.
Check range.
Doubt it. I doubt it. Because, like, you need to bet tens and jacks and queens. Right? Like,
Well, I don't even have those, right?
no, the small blind.
Oh, the small blind, I see. Oh,
Like-
for equity protect. Yeah.
Yeah, like they have the same incentive to
Just win.
win now.
Yeah.
Like really to win now.
Yeah.
They have that incentive, right? Which means like to me that either A, they flopped a hand that is like so exceptionally strong that they're happy checking it,
Yeah.
which is like a straight,
Yeah.
probably a set, or they probably don't have a hand that's so great. Maybe they have like, I mean, even a hand like sevens and eights can make a really great argument for just betting the flop
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Any pair, right?
Any pair.
Yeah.
Yeah, any pair. Aces, I guess, if they were to have aces, that's a hand that like could probably get away with checking some. But yeah, I would see this as like a really good sign that
Yeah. Yeah.
you're in
Likely
good
not
shape.
someone that's checking range and probably trending towards someone that just, I mean, if you start piecing together some of the data points, like the 130 raised pre-flop, and then, just use that to infer that they're probably not checking those like super strong hands on the flop, just
Yeah.
from a player caliber perspective, I think. So yeah, very, very happy to see this check. But then it sort of just, again, puts a interesting decision back in our hands.
Just bet. I mean,
Do you bet like a normal size? You just rip it?
I don't think I would rip it. I don't think I would need to, but I would like bet pot or close, 250, 200, 200 to 300 would be.
Do you think jam should be your... I was sort of thinking along the lines that like jam here should be my only size. Like if it's like I don't know if this is correct. I'm just sort of completely winging it here. There's sort of like this $700 overlay in the pot, basically, which basically kind of makes it like $1,000 pot right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're 137 big blinds effective on the flop.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think jamming is probably okay, but I wouldn't see the need for it personally.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I do end up jamming. No idea what size is correct. I don't know if the jam ever gets heroed by like, ace high type stuff or just any pair on the board, any, sevens or eights that do decide to check, maybe like all the 6x and 5x. I don't know what he does with the worst 9. I assume he never folds. I don't know if he checks it on the flop though.
Yeah, a lot of odd things going on.
Yeah, saves us from having to make tough decisions on overcard runouts.
Yeah, although I think like betting pot does the same, right? Like, does king queen high just like check call the flop facing pot?
Probably not.
They probably just check jam
Yeah.
if they're going to continue in any way.
Yeah.
And I don't think them like check jamming overcards is like bad for us.
Oh, it's not. Yeah.
Like at some point, like we're getting like great value here.
Right. Yeah.
With them having like available bluffs. So that's an interesting like thing or like a backdoor flush draw, like ace 4 of diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can get that hand to jam the flop, that's really, really, really great for your hand.
Yeah.
He ends up
tanking for a while. Not, I would say like maybe like a 2-minute tank or something, which I think is understandable given the situation, and then decides to fold.
Yeah. It's pretty expected, I think, based on the action. For the podcast listener, John has top 5, 6, 9. He has ace 9 off, and just open rips it 5x. No makeout session with the sister today on Tactical Tuesday, so
yeah, it's hard to get there with this hand and this board.
Yeah, I mean they could just have ace 9 and call.
Yeah, the other guy did have queen jack.
Same scenario, but congrats. Have you lost the stand-up game yet? I guess.
No, I actually haven't. I have not paid out yet, so my streak is perfect. But I've gotten heads up twice, and oh my god, it is just like the most stressful / exhilarating hands of poker I've played is when your heads up in the stand-up game.
Yeah, you should just challenge somebody to play heads up, all-time stand-up game. 500 a hand.
You lose a hand, you fold a hand, you have to pay 500.
Yeah, exactly. Just that's what Berkey and Airball should be doing. Yeah, interesting concept, interesting conversation here on Tactical Tuesday. It's pretty cool and something that I'll definitely be having some thoughts about.
I think a fun maybe sequel episode to the stand-up game episode would be a couple hands from the sitting down perspective, and like what cool things you could do or think about when you're sitting down and you're playing versus someone that's standing up, or multiple people that's standing up, because I think there's a lot of fun stuff that goes on there. Yeah,
for sure. And figuring out like the value of like just instead of ripping, like giving them a chance to put the last bet in with like 2 cards.
Oh, a worse hand than mine.
Yeah, worse hand. Which I think, like, almost exclusively when they put it in, it's going to be worse hands than yours.
Yeah, when they start with check.
Yeah, when they start with check. I actually think, like, that when you jam, they call with a lot of the hands that will also check jam that actually have okay equity.
Yeah.
Like, pair
so
plus
really,
draw.
we're sort of trying to, this is like a spot where we're trying to induce.
Yeah, you're trying to get value from, like, their king queen highs and their backdoor flush draws and like jack 10 high type hands.
To be perfectly honest, I'm fairly certain the overriding thought was just I just really want the hand to end. I don't need to get value from king queen high and jack 10. It's okay. Just I don't want to
Fair
lose.
enough. Fair enough. You didn't lose. Congratulations. You played the hand in a way that allowed you to not lose by fluffing top pair, top kicker. With that said, this is a new concept and extra long episode of Tactical Tuesday. Here, I'm excited to hear some hands when you actually make it to sitting down.
One of these days, yeah. I
one of
won't be
these
the last
days.
one.
Yeah. And for the listener, again, live cash pre-flop bootcamp. It's up. Check it out. I think, I think it's a wise investment into your poker education. And that's all that I've got for you here today on Tactical Tuesday.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter, join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter at CPG Podcast.